Good evening and welcome to No Kings on the Hill. I'm Dr. Hill Law. Tonight's episode is not about partisanship. It's not about personalities, and it's not about outrage for clicks. It's about something far more serious than that, something the media has worked very hard to avoid naming. 2025 has been marked by political violence, not metaphorical violence, not heated rhetoric, real violence, real victims with real consequences. And if we can't speak honestly about that, then we're already surrendering to the rule of law. Also, tonight I've got a guest here with me because my co-host couldn't make it, Nom de Plume. And so if you are new here, please check out the website, No Kings on the Hill with drlaw.com, and follow me on my social media accounts for daily videos, weekly lives, and access to all of our previous episodes. Also, please click the follow, subscribe, like, and share buttons to help us grow. Your engagement makes the show better. We are live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We also want to thank the Patriots Prayer Channel for having us. Now for a word from our sponsor, Q Broadcasting.
Heard of Q Broadcast? It's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q Broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part? There are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts, and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
All right, so welcome back. Like I said, again, this is No Kings on the Hill. Tonight, we are going to just kind of go through this year's recap of all the political violence and just how out of control and bad that it's gotten through everything that's been going on, and just the challenges to the really our constitutional republic and our freedom of speech and the attacks on it and everything. And then also I'd like to introduce my guest host tonight. My usual host, Joe St. Clair, had a family emergency come out, so he couldn't make it today. So I've got Nom de Plume. For y'all that don't know, him and his twin brother do have their own podcast, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi there. So Nom de Plume over on TikTok, at Nom de Plume _1.0. Myself and Patriot Dad and SK, you guys, Double W, you guys may know her. We make up the Patriot Source podcast on YouTube, on Rumble, and over on X. You can find us over there. Actually, we're live tonight at 9 p.m. on the Patriot Source podcast.
So let me go ahead and get where. So like I said, tonight we're addressing what many are refused to acknowledge as political violence in America has been selectively condemned and selectively tolerated. You can't do both, but I mean, we look at what just happened here lately. So we're going to kind of go through the policy, administrative failure, and the federalism breakdown of it. And then I want to be perfectly clear about this right at the top. Speech is not violence. Disagreement is not violence. Voting the wrong way is not violence. Violence is violence. And in 2025, that violence has come more and more from the left, excused, minimized, and even ignored by institutions that are supposed to be impartial. It reached a fever pitch with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a political commentator whose only crime was protected speech and debating and saying stuff the left didn't like. I mean, the response wasn't national unity. It wasn't universal condemnation. It was silence, qualification, and blame shifting and blaming him for just speaking. So tonight, here's what is gonna happen on tonight's show. We're going to go be very measured in our pace here because facts do matter, context does matter, and accuracy does matter. First, we're going to review what actually happened in 2025. The big acts of political violence and intimidation that the media refuses to connect is a pattern. Second, we'll look at how institutions reacted, including the media, prosecutors, and federal agencies. And finally, we're going to talk about what this means constitutionally and why selective enforcement is a greater danger than the chaos itself. So we'll go ahead and get started with the facts and then go from there. I don't know if you have anything you want to say or.
Yeah, I mean, political violence. Everybody needs to understand that this is not an accident, right? Everything that we've seen this year, and it dating all the way back to July of 2024 during the presidential election when they tried to assassinate. And I mean they tried to assassinate President Trump. None of this is an accident. This is actually part of a very well scripted color revolution that's been going on in this country for a number of years. We've been talking about it, quite a bit. A lot of the investigation drilling down into who's responsible for this, but this is not just a misunderstanding of, is speech violence, is hurting your feelings violence. That's not what any of this is. Everybody is playing their role. They know exactly what their roles are. The media covers it up. The universities are basically writing the script and educating and creating the pipeline and the resumes for these people. None of this is an accident. This is a well scripted color revolution.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's kind of what it's going, and it wasn't. And the funny thing is it's just the way they're going through it and the way they're going about it, and then now they're still trying to deny Antifa, and you see all this, and they're trying to say, oh, it's because ICE is wearing masks. No, the only reason ICE wears masks is to protect their families and themselves from being doxxed and having the drug cartels come after them. They're not worried about the legal immigrants they're deporting. They're worried about MS-13. They're worried about the Mexican drug cartels, the Sinaloa cartel, all those that once they find out where their names and addresses are, that if they ever come after them, they won't go after the agent themselves. They will go after their families. They'll go after their wives, their kids, their loved ones. And I've always said this constantly is if they don't want to wear masks. I mean, now that it's winter, okay, the face masks keep their face kind of warm whenever in the cold weather, but in 110-degree weather out in California, Nevada, Arizona, they don't want to be wearing those masks. It's hot. It's ridiculous. I mean, that's not what they want to do. And we saw that started out this year. And obviously we know we can link them back to Soros and all the nonprofits and the entities outside the United States. And that we could go into a real long rabbit hole there of the Bilderberg group and the New World Order, One World Order agree what they're trying to push for there. The reason why they want us so divided and separated, because the fact that is like, or found like they say, divided we fall, united we stand. And as a people, if we're united politically and ideologically, or even close to ideologically, then our government fears it, because then the politicians can't keep control. Because if they've got us fighting each other, acting like we're the Cowboys and Eagles or something fans, tribally, then they can sit there and do whatever they want while they're like, oh, look over here, this is what's going on, when they're not even dealing with that. They're doing something totally different.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a political tactic that's as old as time, and we watched it play out last week when the entire conservative ecosphere was focusing on what Candace Owens was doing. Where she's basically, in my opinion, trying to create a reasonable doubt case for the defense for Tyler Robinson and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We were all fighting amongst ourselves, and we had Republicans over there in Congress, in the House and in the Senate, that were basically doing things to shoot President Trump right in the back because we weren't holding them accountable because we were distracted. So, of course, I mean, this is a tactic as old as time.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, over and over again throughout 25, as we saw those attacks, they left no doubt that they were following the trans ideology, whether it's through their postings, their manifestos, statements, that they were left-leaning, transgender, ideological, that side, the transgender cult. And it seems that their new thing is that they attack anybody who doesn't believe their way or doesn't feel like their way. And I've talked to my co-host, he's actually he's bi, he's not gay, but even he said that he looks at it that once they legalize gay marriage, all those nonprofits and groups and activist groups that were making money, their job was done. They had nothing to do, so they all just went towards the transgender movement. Whether the majority of the gay area even supports them or not, and especially at how far they're trying to take it, they did it because they want money. And I always said when they legalized gay marriage, it was almost like opening up Pandora's box, because then they were going to go this, and next thing you know, it's going to be, now that they're doing all this ideological and it's a feeling versus biological or anything, next thing you know is pedophiles are going to be saying, oh, that's just who I am. They're going to be trying to pull that. And it's like, this speech is about being able to speak speech that you do not agree with, that's not a lot, that hurts your feelings. It's not in line with your beliefs. That's the whole part of the freedom of speech. And even our founding fathers warned us about this, and warned us about the bads. They weren't worried about a faction taking over, a faction becoming strong. They were worried about a faction who believes that their only way is right, that only their line of thinking is right. And that's where you get the problem with factions, because then they start attacking everything that's, if you don't believe the way I believe, then it's not right. And that's what I've tried to tell people, is like, constitutionally something, I can interpret the Constitution one way, you can interpret the other way, and it doesn't matter, because it matters how the Supreme Court rules. Now, as far as commentating and debating and talking back and forth, I can disagree with the way the Supreme Court ruled. That doesn't, obviously I still have to follow the law and what they rule is constitutional, but I can disagree with their ruling. And it seems like today that's where the left is. It's like, okay, if you don't agree with this, then they automatically start calling you names or going to Nazi and everything. But the funny thing is they're literally pulling from Stalin's playbook with everything they're doing.
No, you're right. I mean, and this is something that we've talked about quite a bit in the last couple of episodes of our show, specifically when we're addressing Candace Owens, because there are tactics, there are psychological tactics that she's using. And one of those is, it's that polarization. It's called in-group polarization and out-group polarization. And the philosophy behind that is you basically create camps of people, and anybody that is not in your camp and doesn't agree completely with you, they are the enemy. And we've seen that all over the place. If you're questioning Candace Owens, if you're questioning the trans ideology, if you're questioning really any aspect of leftism or illegal immigration, whatever the case may be, you are literally evil and you deserve to die. That's where the left is right now. In fact, there was a former Antifa member who was interviewed. I believe it was in New York City a couple weeks ago, and I'm sure you probably saw this video. But someone was talking to him, and he said, "Listen, they don't think you're fascist because you're fascist. They call you fascist so that they can kill you." Right? It is justification, because if you could go back in time and you could stop Hitler by killing him, wouldn't you? Which is why everybody that they disagree with is literally Hitler. But for the Antifa folks, they actually want to kill you. So in order to justify that in their minds, they will call you Hitler and they will call you fascist, because then it's justified.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Is the funny thing is that's important distinction to make, is because it comes back to the fact of, once violence is framed as political action, then there are no longer constraints on the level of violence. Like you were saying, who wouldn't want to kill Hitler? Who wouldn't want to go back and kill Hitler's minions or whatever, because they were just horrible and bad person. But the funny thing is if you look at Stalin and all their playbook, it's to blame the other party for doing what you're actually doing, to obfuscate that, accuse them for doing what you're actually doing yourselves. And then being like, the other one was where if they disagree with you, they're this, and this. They're like the most abhorrent of objects, whether that's a Nazi or. And the funny thing is we see all these Western countries like Europe, the EU, and then factions in the United States pushing for socialism, which they don't understand. Socialism is communism. It becomes communism. It never works out as socialism. Everybody goes, no, communism, socialism are two different things. I'm like, no, they're not. They're one day away from the other. I mean, it's literally socialism. It starts out as socialism, and then as soon as the economy starts going to crap, it becomes communism, because they need to keep power. It's so they can maintain that power. And the other problem with socialism is the only rich people are the people that are party that are people in power. Like they were saying, the thing with AOC where she got busted for spending all this money and going on this big thing and stuff. I'm like, well, that's the way socialists are. They are only against money if it's not because if it's not for them. It's like they don't want. Right now, anybody can make it into politics. Anybody can become rich. But in socialism, nobody, the poor stay poor and the rich and the elite stay elite. There's no in between, and there's no way to move from one to the other unless every once in a while they run a lottery or something to make you think you can get up. And it's funny how all the countries who've actually lived under socialism and communism for the last 40, 50 years are the ones that are actually voting in conservatives. And people that are not socialists, like was it not Bulgaria or one of them that just had a big overthrow the government from throughout the communist government or whatever.
And Romania or something like that over there.
Yeah, it was like Bulgaria or something over in that area.
Yeah, that's not a bug. That's a feature of socialism. So we always joke that socialism is not for the socialists. No. They're the elite. They get to live off, live very nicely. Socialism is for everybody else, and you can't you can't vote your way out of it once you're in it. You have to shoot your way out of it. And frankly, I think one of the most frustrating things that I ever see is all of these mal-educated college students with their underwater basket weaving degrees with a minor in feminist dance theory who are constantly lecturing us, telling us that what all of those other countries tried to do wasn't real socialism. It wasn't done right. We're going to do it right. We know how to do this right, when in reality there is no way to do this right.
That's what every socialist that's what every socialist has said before them.
Yeah. No. You can't do it right because people have free will.
Well, the only real way to do it is a one world order, because if you have a one world order, then that one world order can control what money is worth, because they can because technically and economically wise, money or anything is only valued as much as you can make somebody else believe that it's valued. There's not, it's a psychological belief of what something's worth and what the value is, and based on that. So I always tell them, I'm like, as long as you have multiple governments, it'll never work, because we've blamed China for trying to artificially inflate playing with their money and everything like that, their currencies, and trying to print more than they actually have and then say they didn't and trying to make it be worth more. I'm like, as long as there's other countries with other forms of currency, you can never do that, socialism will never work. Now, under one world order, maybe, but still then you're not going to have freedom, because economically you think, if everybody's equal, then everybody gets to try all the new technological high-end stuff when everybody else is. No, they don't. The only difference is in socialism, the government picks who those people are, the select few that get to try out and get to use that expensive stuff before it becomes cheap enough and gets made enough that it can be spread out among the masses. Versus now, everybody has a chance to get to that point. Maybe not everybody has the ability to, but everybody has the chance to.
Yeah, I mean, so I mentioned this concept of the color revolution earlier. You have to understand that is the goal of that, right? So for many years, the UN has had their sights set on basically removing the United States and our economy as the top economy and as the preeminent force in the world. They want a model that is more similar to the CCP model. You had the former president of BlackRock and the guys over the World Economic Forum who actually state out loud, and they believe that markets would prefer a more restrictive top-down economy like China than they do, our economy. So that's exactly where they're going. That's exactly what they want to do. And the tactics you're seeing playing out here in the United States inside this color revolution, and the political violence that you're seeing is just one arm of that, is designed to knock the United States down, prop China up so that they have better, tighter control over the global economy.
Yeah, and it's also the fact of before, the crazy thing is the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which he wasn't a government official. I mean, he didn't wield any state power. Obviously, he was pretty powerful word-wise, but he couldn't implement policy himself. I mean, all he did was speak, organize, and debated. And before that, nobody had ever really attacked or gone after somebody like that since Martin Luther King. I mean, that was the last time somebody that was a political activist or a political speaker was attacked or went after. Usually if somebody's going to go after somebody, they go after somebody that actually has the power to do something that can actually change policy themselves, more power on it versus, yeah.
Disagree with you. And I'm going to tell you why I disagree with you. Charlie Kirk had more power in the conservative movement than anybody except President Trump. In fact, I would argue that Charlie Kirk had more power in any political movement since Martin Luther King than President Trump. They killed Charlie Kirk not because he would debate people. They killed Charlie Kirk because his message was the most effective get out the vote message and organization this country has seen since Martin Luther King, maybe even more so. Because Charlie Kirk actually brought young people to faith. Martin Luther King didn't in a lot of ways, but Charlie did. And he was not only getting young people out to vote, he was changing their faith. He was undoing what was being done to them at these colleges and these universities. Charlie Kirk was not killed by a random Trans-Tifa guy. He was killed to stop him and Turning Point USA. And now Candace Owens, in my opinion, is helping him do it. But
yeah, I'm not arguing with you there. I'm just talking about he's not an actual public official that can go in there and sign a piece of policy or submit a piece of legislation and actually vote to pass it. Obviously, no, his words were very powerful, and sometimes words can be more powerful. He obviously could affect it by help making sure certain people get elected and everything, but he wasn't the physical president or the physical senator or the physical speaker of House is what I was meaning. Is that they were, that they're going after somebody like that. And then, I mean, it still comes to the point of now like you were saying, it's never random, and it's going to keep going. And it's like, now the question is, where does it go now? And we've kept seeing more attacks. We started seeing more attacks on regular podcasters. I mean, I forgot what's his name. He's on X a lot and he has his podcast, but he was talking about not even doing a podcast anymore because he was getting so much threats on him and his family and his life. And I can't remember who it was. He always wears a hat, has
Tim Pool.
Yeah. And then another thing is, everybody, we've seen this year that all of a sudden we start seeing all these FBI bust of these planned domestic terror attacks within the United States and stuff. And I'm like, either one, our FBI is just actually doing their job for once, but I don't think that's what it is. I think what it is, I think they've been making busts like these the last 4 years. It's just, we now have an FBI that's actually telling us, because of the fact, obviously Biden didn't want to sit there and have his FBI putting out that there's all these leftist ideological groups being busted for attempted terror attacks.
No, they weren't arresting them. That's not. In fact, there was a very intentional move in policy. You have to understand, under the Auto Pen administration, because it wasn't Joe Biden, it was other people besides Joe Biden who had control of the Auto Pen. He had no idea what was going on in that administration. Under the Auto Pen, they shifted their priorities. They shifted it away from trying to rescue missing children. They shifted it away from everything, and they focused all of their fire, all of it, on President Trump and on the MAGA movement. I mean, you saw the FBI, they bragged about it. They said that the FBI was laser focused on the largest dragnet operation and investigation in FBI history in hunting down January 6th protesters. That's what their focus was. They put all of their eggs, all of their focus, everything that they had on one concept, and it was making sure President Trump was not able to ever step foot back in the White House. They put all of their focus on it.
I believe it. And then what's his Smith had him at Congress today, and he's still right through his teeth still sticking that, President Trump committed a crime and I would do the same thing again, when he knows it's a lie. I mean, it's like his TDS is so bad he can't even admit that what he did. And I mean, to the fact that they were literally approving, I still have not figured out how in the world Judge Boasberg is still in office and has not been impeached. I mean, obviously he has to go. The people that impeach him are other leftist judges within Washington, D.C. and all that. But I mean, he literally approved for sitting congressional members to be spied on. That is just unheard of. It's ridiculous that they were given the ability to advise the court, and he didn't even know he was signing it. He didn't even look to see that he was signing for a warrant to start to spy on actual sitting congressional members.
Yeah, listen, you cannot have an effective color revolution if you don't have aspects of the government working alongside of you. I mean, you know that you know, in 2021 and 2024, you had a number of these leftist attorneys, and I wish SK was here. She knows all of these groups, but they all got together and they were bragging about it before President Trump was sworn in and he was inaugurated. That they were preparing lawsuit after lawsuit. I think they said they had 100 lawsuits pre-written, ready to go to file in these federal district courts, and they knew, and they still know, that every single place that they go, they're going to have a federal district court judge that is going to rubber stamp anything that they do. The same thing goes for Boasberg. Boasberg is just he's the tip of the spear. There is a judicial insurrection happening in this country. And what I mean by that is these judges know what a unitary executive is. They know what Article 2 powers are. They are intentionally overstepping their authority, not President Trump, their authority to abscond and steal his executive powers. They're doing it on purpose. They know exactly what they're doing.
Well, he's actually doing something that most presidents haven't done, is the fact that, okay, they complain that, oh, he's grabbing all these powers and stuff. But in reality, all he's saying is, look, you have obfuscated your powers as Congress to make true legislative policy, public policy, and decide to hand that off to all these administrative agencies that are in the administrative state that are under the purview of the executive. And then you want me to not have control, the sitting president to not have that control. And then I was elected to get my policies implemented, but you've got people here that were hired under Democrats or whatever that don't agree with my policy. And when I submit an executive order, an executive memorandum, whatever, and it says do a 45 and a 90-day study, that study's not done in 4 or 5 years or 2.5, 3 years. They just slow walk the study, so the policy never gets implemented. So what he's saying is, you know what? Fine. If you want to work in the executive administration, then the head executive is going to have the ability to fire you or let you stay, because if you're not going to get out of the way and do your job the way you're supposed to, then I don't need you here because I was elected to implement this policy. And you're not aligning with that. You're pushing that back. I mean, one good thing is, and he learned this his first term, was AMWAR in Alaska, is he signed an executive order, opened that day one, but they didn't approve. The study didn't get completed till like 3.5 years. So by the time that the study was completed, and I think they maybe issued 2 drilling permits before President Trump lost the election, and Biden started and rescinded it. And so Trump's now saying, you know what, fine. You want to abscond all this power over to the executive branch, to the administrative agencies, which are under the executive purview, then I'm going to make sure that they're not interfering with my powers, my job.
Yeah. So, I mean, folks like Steve Bannon and Mike Davis and others spent a lot of time coaching and explaining what was going to happen. I mean, they were going back into, summer of 2023, telling and basically telegraphing exactly what they were preparing for. The president of the United States, according to Article 2, and this is not like a mystery, okay? All you have to do is read it. All you have to do is read it. The president of the United States is the unitary executive. There is no independent agency that exists under Article 2. They don't exist.
Yeah.
There's no independent secretary, or there's no independent anybody. If it exists as an agency under the executive branch, it gets its power because it flows from the president. Period. If you're going to tell me that there's if you can tell me there's an independent agency, an independent person that can't be fired by the president, it's an unconstitutional agency. It can't exist.
No, I agree with you. And that's what I'm saying is he's pretty much saying, look, you tried to create these administrative agencies to pass on your policy making responsibilities because it's more politically hot potato stuff. So you can blame it on some elected bureaucrat instead of you having to take the responsibility for it yourselves. And then you're going to make this administrative agency be under the purview of the executive. I'm going to take that power back because there is no fourth branch. There is no administrative branch. The Constitution established 3 branches: legislative, judicial, and executive. Not not the administrative. And so he's really the first president that's tried to push that power. And so when I see all these leftists and Democrats complaining about it, I'm like, well, fine, then take your legislative powers back. Yeah. But you don't want to do it. Their argument originally back during World War II was the fact that they're saying, oh, everything's getting so specialized. We don't have the specialized knowledge to make these policies for these individual groups. Well, fine. Instead of making a different agency, get a committee of 12 professionals that work in those industries that put together the policy for you with your legislation, and then you still have to vote to approve it. But don't make them separate from Congress. Put them a 12-team panel within Congress itself.
If you want to get like really wildly out there, I mean, this is a wild concept. If it's too complex and the federal government can't understand it, they shouldn't be trying to deal with it in the first place. It's not their job at all.
Yeah.
If you want to regulate something, if you want to govern something, but the federal government can't do it, it's too technical, it's too difficult, you probably need to go to the states, which, by the way, is where it freaking belongs in the first place, not at the federal government. I mean, the Constitution is clear what the role of the federal government is, and I don't see any of what we have going on with the EPA, with the Department of Education, the Treasury, any of it. Well, Treasury, yeah, but Department of all of this stuff. I don't see anything in the Constitution that says that we should be doing those things, which means the states are the ones who should be doing those things.
Well, we shouldn't, but they've used the Commerce Clause, they've used 3 different clauses to broaden them that way to explain, to say that it's their unenumerated powers or whatever, that it's part of that. And yeah, it's ridiculous. But no, I got, this is from my last semester, but it's called, is administrative law unlawful? And it literally talks about, it goes through here and tells you, and it talks about how it's literally administrative law is extra legal power. It goes back to prerogative power of a prerogative power of a monarchy that even the star courts in Europe declared was unconstitutional, even for back in European times. And it goes back and it kind of talks about all the way back to the star courts and everything with the constitutionality of administrative law and how it's unconstitutional and that it doesn't align with anything that's in the Constitution as far as that goes. And then the other book I have, this one kind of explains the history of how the administrative state came to fruition from World War I through World War II. And almost all the agencies that we have now came out of war agencies that were literally socialist, where the government had taken over those industries socially during the war, pretty much a socialist government. And instead of giving complete power back to the private sectors, they created these new agencies that would then monitor and regulate and everything else. So they could still have control of those industries without actually controlling the industry per se. And that goes back to the New Deal and all that. And then, believe it or not, during World War II, they actually took more socialist control of the government than they did during World War I.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to zoom out, right, from this conversation, go up to, 20,000, 30,000 feet on this, right? So in the context of the judicial insurrection, as we call it, and frankly, maybe even legislative insurrection, because right now you've got 2 branches of government that are basically fighting against the unitary executive, not because they don't want him to have the powers, the president to have these powers, though they don't, but the people that control the money that control them don't want this particular president to have these powers. See, President Trump is the only person, the only president that is not allowed to actually exercise the full weight and force of Article 2 powers of the Constitution. Everybody else can. They're allowed to. Obama can, Biden can, George Bush can, because they were all moving in the same direction that the moneyed people wanted it to go. And
they were all Bilderberg.
Yeah, they were moving in that direction, so they're totally fine with them using it. President Trump being the one to say, this is not what any of this is supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be doing any of these things. Then they have to then try to abscond with his powers, and in doing so, they have to be engaged in an insurrection to do it, which is where we are.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally it's the funny thing, like you're saying, is they just don't want him to have powers because he's actually the first president in probably over 100, if not more years than that is actually not a member of the Bilderberg group. If you actually look at right before, go back to Bush, especially even go back to Reagan, but Bush, Obama, Clinton, right? He was a nobody from Arkansas. And then he shows up at a Bilderberg meeting, then he's running for president. Obama was a nobody first-term senator. Ends up getting invited to a Bilderberger group. Next thing you know, he's running for president and elected. And it's like every other one of them. That's why I've always said that's what people don't understand is back before Trump, Democrat, Republican, that was all just for us. They might have done a little bit different policies, but they were all going the same direction. They were all working towards the same direction, which was a new one world order. They were all in that globalist mindset of government. They might have a little different ideas on what policies and stuff to get there, but they, like you said, they were all on that one track. And that's why Trump is such a threat to him, because he's doing everything he can to set that globalist agenda back 50, 100 plus years.
Yeah, no, he is. So, I mean, one of the things that President Trump recognizes in a number of other people, right? It's not just him, but he's the only one with the, dare I say, the testicular fortitude to actually stick his neck out there and risk all of everything that he has to do it. One of the things that he recognized is, all of those people that are continuously moving in that direction, the Bilderberg groups, as you call them, and I'm vaguely familiar with who those folks are. While they're doing this, we are funding it, right? We're funding it for the entire world, right? It's not, you don't see the EU, you don't see the UK, you don't see China, you don't see France, you don't see Korea, you don't see Japan, you don't see any of them where their citizens and their laborers, hard labor and tax dollars is going to fund all of this across the world. It is the United States, period. And President Trump is tired of it. We're tired of it. So you're taking our manufacturing, you're taking our jobs, you're shoving 20, 30 million illegal people in here. You're driving down wages, you're driving up housing costs as a result. Everything that we've seen happen, and you're forcing us to pay for it while you do it to us, which is just the biggest kick in the gut. And I think he's had enough. We'll see if he's successful. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think going back to the kind of subject around about political violence, I think is like, it doesn't necessarily have to be violence. It can be about just getting you to give up. And we've started seeing that with some of the Republicans in Congress, in the House and Senate. They're voting with Democrats in certain things, and they're not pushing President Trump's full agendas the way they're supposed to. They won't remove the filibuster and all that. And it's because I have a feeling that they've got it's the people with the money that putting them in power coming at them saying, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to come after you. We're going to go after you legally or whatever. We won't fund your reelection or anything like that, because they can either, one, it can be for violence and a full revolution and straight out civil war, which I don't think they want that, because Democrats know they would lose. Mm-hmm. But it can also just be for capitulation.
Well, there is a large portion, and it's not a small portion. There's a large portion of Republicans in Congress, Senate, and the House. It's not a small group. It's most of them who do not support President Trump and don't support his agenda at all. I'd say it's probably 10% of the Republicans that actually do support his agenda. The only reason that the ones who don't, that pretend like they do, is not because they're afraid of violence. It's because they want to get reelected. And that's it, right? So the moneyed people are one thing, but most of the money that flows into these elections comes from us, right? It comes from us. It's spread across. And these people, they want to keep their jobs, but if we're distracted enough to where we're not paying attention to what they're doing, they will always stab in the back every single time, which is exactly what we've been since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Yeah, we've been distracted.
Well, and I think some of it has to do with, I think this kind of back somewhat on subject, but I think it's because Candace Owens was in love with Charlie. I think if you look back at the earlier pictures and the earlier stuff of her, they looked like it looked like she had, and then it was right around the time that him and Erica met or got married that she fully left TPUSA, that she, even her separate side where she'd separated and had her own company, but still part of it, fully separated. And Sometimes I think that has something to do with it. And I think she just wanted attention. She wanted to get it because it seems like we'll see how it goes after now that she's had that meeting with Erica. We'll see how her craziness turns out. But it's also kind of funny how media, they'll say anytime like Antifa or any of those people, they'll be like, oh, it's an isolated incident, or it's mostly peaceful, or it's clashes or anger boiling over. But yet when we do it, it all becomes domestic terrorism, extremism, threats to democracy. And it's like, really, people, we're not tearing down whole towns. We go out and protest with flags and prayer and Bibles. That's not a threat to democracy, domestic terrorism, extremism. And the question is it really comes to what do we do to stop this stuff? Because we need to wake people up, because obviously another thing I think is very important. I know some of the people may not want to elect the Republicans, but for the midterms, during the primaries, vote for whoever you want to. But when it comes to the general election, even if it's a congressional member, is not going to do anything, get out and vote, because if Democrats gain back power, Trump will get nothing done the second half of his presidency, because it will be nothing but the same as the first time. Impeachment hearings and they're already trying to go after Pete Hegseth and his and what's her name, his chief of staff, because they're thinking they're two of the most vulnerable people to go after, because they weren't able to take him down with the Epstein debacle or documents. And so now they're trying to go after they're following their same attacks as the first time. They're now trying to go after who's ever close to them to try to hurt them enough that they'll flip or create a lie or something.
Yeah. Well, so there's a lot there. Now, do you know what a Jezebel spirit is? Are you familiar with that concept?
I think so, yeah.
A Jezebel spirit. So I don't know if Candace was in love with Charlie Kirk. I think that may be a little bit of a stretch. But there's a type of woman. There's a type of person. It doesn't even have to be a woman, but it's a type of demon possession. Patriot Dad can tell you a lot more about this than I can. This is more his realm than mine. But one of them is a Jezebel spirit. And one of the traits of that Jezebel spirit is that, especially in women, is that, if they know a man, or they're friends with a man, or they're with a man, or they're dating a person, or they're in proximity to someone who they believe they have ownership over that person. And I think you're actually onto something. I did a couple of videos about this when it comes to Candace and Erica. What you are seeing, and the sort of the distancing with Charlie and Candace when Erica came on the picture, wasn't because she was in love with him. It's because Charlie, whether they were best friends, whether they were colleagues, was never going to put another woman in the picture one-on-one instead of his wife or his future wife. That's just the type of person he was. He's a godly person. He was a devout person. As soon as Erica stepped into his life and he realized, I'm going to marry her, he would never put himself in a situation or in a position where another woman, where he's having a private conversation with her, he's alone in the room with her for any particular reason. There's just people who are like that. They won't do that. They won't put themselves in that position. And that's what happened. And then you saw, Candace, and she went on and did other things. But Candace didn't have a significant relationship with Charlie after 2018, which is coincidentally when Erica and Charlie met.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying is, and it feels like that may have something to do with how she's.
It does. She hates Erica. She's very jealous of Erica. There's no question. But I'm not sure that it's because she's in love with her, but that's just the Jezebel spirit in her. She has to. She feels like she has ownership over Charlie. You can hear the way she talks about it. Like they were as close as ever when they hadn't really had a close personal relationship since 2018.
But like
they hadn't even communicated outside of group chats with many other people in them.
Yeah, but also if you look before 2018 at videos, at pictures, she always has her legs crossed towards him, always leaning towards him. Anytime they're in a video, she's just doing a lot of that body movements and stuff and language that you can see a lot of that body language, you could just see that there's something going on there. But now, and then it comes down to the point of what do we got to do to wake people up to get this to stop? Because I mean, it's to the point where some of them think it could end up with a civil war. But the funny thing is, like I try to tell everybody, is outside of the 5% on the left and 5% on the right, the majority of America, we all want the same thing. We just have different ideas of how to get there. And the majority of the stuff, if we dropped the tribalism of it, we dropped the Republican and Democrat, we could come together and either agree to disagree or find a middle ground. But it's because Democrat, which the DNC and the GOP are not government. They are private entities. They're businesses. And so they're trying to do whatever they can to make money and be a corporation. And it's like, we got to stop letting them control our ideologies and our hate for each other when they're the ones wanting us to do that, when the reality is the majority of us are not like what them and the media try to portray it.
Yeah, well, listen, don't confuse the DNC with the network of NGOs that are being funded to do this through the Soros, Open Societies Network, through
I know.
Roy Neville Singham and the 505051 groups and all of those. The DNC is a player in all of that, but the orchestration, the people who are actually pulling the strings, and they are creating this network of NGOs, and they're training these people how to do this. It comes from much higher than the DNC. But so the question you asked is what do we do? Well, unfortunately, we spent too much time already on this show talking about one of the distractions, and it's Candace Owens. We had to spend a lot of time the last week, 2 weeks, dealing with this, the mess that she's created inside of the conservative movement, inside the MAGA movement. But it's not just her, right? As conservative creators, it is our job to make sure that the message that Charlie Kirk brought to the table and the movement that he created does not get co-opted in the vacuum that his assassination has created. And what you're seeing right now is you're seeing people like Nick Fuentes, who is trying to co-opt the message of Charlie and turn it into one that, frankly, is very anti-Semitic and very racist, and saying that is an America First message, because it is not. It is the antithesis of what Charlie believed and what he spoke about and what he wanted. So in Charlie's absence, though, you have millions of young white men who have been crapped on for years, if not decades, who were drawn to Charlie's message. And the outlet that they have right now coming at them is the Nick Fuentes message. So our job as creators and podcasters and people who are much older and have been around the block much longer than these young men is to say, no, that's not the right message. What she's doing over there, Candace, to try to splinter the MAGA movement will be more destructive than anything that we've seen so far. It's our job to make sure that we stay laser focused on the midterms, because we have to continue the turning point, get out the vote message. Otherwise, you're going to have the Candaces and the Nick Fuenteses of the world, who, in my opinion, are actually designed to splinter the movement. I think they're actually part of the operation to do this.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised, because Candace seems a person like me. She's more of an opportunist and a money person than she is maybe ideological. Like me,
100%.
If I got big enough to where I had enough views and stuff on, where I actually started to have people saying, "Hey, will you do this to make money and or offer me 10 grand a month or something?" If somebody offered me to report anti-Trump stuff or anti-conservative stuff, I'd be like, no, because it'll never be believable, because I am actually a Christian conservative. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for notability or because I just think it's the one that I can be best at. It's because that's who I am. Just like a lot of people who run for public office, they're not necessarily Democratic or Republican. They just took whatever side had an open seat in the state they lived in or a state they could move to, because they wanted to be in public office and be in power, versus somebody who actually does it because that's what they believe in their heart, and that's what they believe on their inside, as their person. And and we've got to stop. And the funny thing is, we've got to get religion back up and people understand. And the funny thing is we got to quit fighting science as much too, because what I'm trying to think of the science on quantum physics actually proves a consciousness, or proves a afterlife per se. It proves if you look at the quantum theory and quantum itself, mechanics and everything, it proves that once you pass on, you go back to a one consciousness. That's how it explains it scientifically, which would be God. I mean, it literally says that quantum physics pretty much, and quantum theory describes that there is a afterlife per se, that your energy moves on to a one consciousness, or whatever they want to call it. But it's literally almost proving that there is something bigger. So maybe people can wake up and see it, and then they need to start pushing science. It's funny, like there was one scientist that tried to prove that we had a soul, and nobody recognized it because there's only like 6 studies done. But ever since then, the scientists try to say, oh, it's the religion that doesn't want it done. No, religion wants them to keep doing the studies. It's science that doesn't want it, because if the study shows that there is a God or there is a soul, that would just totally change everybody.
Well, listen, I don't know about the quantum physics behind, heaven and consciousness and all that stuff, but I do know that a lot of science finds the results that the people are paying for science to find at this point. I mean, and I think we saw that without a doubt during COVID, and we're starting to see the after effects of trust the science when the science is specifically designed, it's paid for, and it's meant to have an outcome. And that outcome was the largest transfer of wealth in American history from taxpayers to the pharmaceutical companies in the form of the mRNA vaccine.
Oh yeah. I'm not talking about that type of science, but
no, I know, but I think I get it. I'm not sure how much science you're going to get when the real science that's being done right now is ultimately it's designed to create an outcome, and that outcome generally has money behind it. But that's the capitalist world we live in. But we know that sometimes that has a nasty effect. I'm sure you saw that Stanford in the last 2 weeks released a study that the COVID vaccine is basically a heart attack machine. Basically, that's what it does. We watched it in real time. We watched it in young males, high school age young males, 15 to 22, 23 with myocarditis. You've got turbo cancers that are popping up everywhere. I mean, I did a video on this last Thursday, and the comments was, thousands of comments of people and their experiences of perfectly healthy people with turbo cancers and dying within months of getting the jab or the boosters or whatever. But that's what science is creating right now, because that's what it's being paid to create.
No, and I believe it. And it's just the fact I'm talking about, but I can promise you nobody paid science to prove that there's a consciousness or something after death, because
they'll pay to shut that down.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is we should look at some of that too, because a lot of people, they say they don't believe in God because they can't prove it. But if science can prove that there is something after, not necessarily God, but there's at least an afterlife, there is a consciousness, then maybe that will help bring more people to God per se, because their minds will be able to justify that, okay, this isn't impossible. This isn't improbable. It's actually more probable and possible than we think. I mean, even looked at everybody who said, oh, Noah was just a theory or a theoretical or a soliloquy or whatever, but they're actually have now proven that there was a worldwide flood. Now, the debate's still up on whether it was God throwing stuff down at the earth, whether it was an asteroid, whether it was solar flares that melted all the ice caps at the end of the Younger Dryas, whatever. But they've actually scientifically proven now that there was a massive flood around the time that all of the religions show a flood myth.
Yeah, it's not just all the religions. It's archaeological. It's every culture that existed that, every culture's got a story around the world that has a mythology stories. They have it about giants. They've got all of this where, giant flood came, and there are folks who believe, and this is Patriot Dad's realm more than it is mine. There are folks that believe that, an age, which we're currently in, is somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 years. And the flood was just the end of an age. And we'll have another end of an age at some time soon, within 500-ish years. We'll see.
Yep.
And that end of that age will be the end of it will be the golden age, but it won't actually be the golden age. So this is an area that is interesting to me, and I'm starting to dive into it a little bit more, but it's much more Patriot Dad's area than mine.
If you like some of this stuff, have you heard of the Y-Files? His name is Alex.
Y-Files?
Yeah, it's a YouTube show. His name is Alex something, but he does all these like conspiracy theories, myths, stuff. He does stuff on religion, and he does like the whole story. And then at the end, he'll pretty much show what could be debunked, what can't, and stuff like that, and then leave it up for you to decide. And he covers a lot of cool and interesting stuff, theories about past, about religion, about aliens and everything. It's pretty cool, but it's called the Y-Files.
There's a guy. So I was talking to my brother. So those of you that don't know, Patriot Dad and I are twins. And he's a very religious, very strong faith person. And I'm on my journey there. And one of the things that I couldn't sort of rationalize in my mind is, the vastness of time and of the universe and how that squares with, with Christianity and with the Bible and everything that we know about it. Because this planet alone is what, like 18 billion years old. And I think it is the height of narcissism to imagine that in as large as the universe is, as vast it is, as long as it's been here, that our 4,000 or 5,000 years of existence as humans of consciousness, that we're it. That's us. It's only us.
I agree with you, and that's why I say is
there's a guy by the name of Timothy Alberino. Look him up on YouTube. My brother gave me an 8-hour podcast of his that I watched, and I left that understanding that, you know what, you don't have to think of it that way, that it's entirely possible. We can't really comprehend it, but it's entirely possible. So check out Timothy Alberino. He's fantastic.
And I will, and check out some of his too, because if you start looking at the ancient astronaut theorist part of it, it makes it pretty probable too. And it's saying that we're not necessarily whether you call them aliens or God or whatever, that we're not necessarily the first trial, that we're actually like the 6th go around, that we're actually the 6th iteration, and that Atlantis or whatever we thought of as Atlantis, but was actually worldwide, was the 5th iteration. And so it's saying that we're not the first, like you're saying, every 6,000 years, a new age, kind of that thought of that we're the 6th iteration of the trial for that. And it's just, it's crazy.
Timothy Alberino has a different explanation for that, and you should check it out on YouTube.
Oh, sure, I will. But yeah, what I was trying to say earlier is James Madison warned us that factions are dangerous not when they disagree, but when they believe the rules no longer bind them. And that's pretty much what we've witnessed this year. Is it's the rules aren't binding those people, because it goes back to the point of that the founders were not naive about conflict. They expected disagreement. They expected passion. They even expected unrest. What they feared explicitly were factions that would set aside the law when they were unable to persuade others. And that's kind of what the left has done now, is they sit there and set aside the law for them and try to justify their actions on us by saying that, oh, like the judge there in Oregon here a while back let a guy off. Okay, the guy was black. He had stabbed this woman. After he stabbed her, she called him a racial slur. And so the judge, even though the jury had convicted him, the judge said, oh, you're innocent because she called you a racial slur. Justified his actions, even though his actions happened before what she said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but fighting words, yes, those aren't protected by first speech, but stabbing somebody with a knife, even if she had called you the N-word before you stabbed her, that's not an equal reaction to the action. It'd be different if she said the N-word, I'm going to kill your family. Then you might be an optional reaction of trying to take her life because she's threatening the life of your family. But if she calls you the N-word, you shouldn't do anything, but at the most slapping, punching, that would be like the most that would be justifiable from that action. It's like, how is this judge trying to sit there and say that, trying to use the fighting word explanation for freedom of speech, and then saying that a knife stabbing somebody in the stomach or whatever is an opposite action to the, it doesn't.
Well, it's not, but it's not supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you described it pretty well in that, these opposite factions, the founders never accounted for an entire global, I don't think they ever really accounted for an entire global effort to overturn the rule of law just so that they can continue to get what they want and fleece the American people and fleece the taxpayers. They couldn't have seen this coming, but they did provide a framework to make sure that it doesn't happen. And unfortunately, the framework, the people that need to be in place to prevent this from happening are the ones who are causing it to happen. And the only way out of this is to vote our way back into a constitutional republic. I don't know. I don't know how likely it is or how possible it is. SK seems to believe that it's already too late. But I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we're a little bit over an hour now, but I'm starting to do lives every day because I got laid off last week. So I'm trying to see if I can at least, I'm trying to see if I can monetize some. Yeah, well, I was gonna say I was saying maybe we can start looking for me on there because I'm kind of starting to do them every evening now. But yeah, I kind of got laid off last week, so I've been doing a lot of my own lives again, trying to see if I can monetize some. But
yeah, I don't get on TikTok live often. My wife thinks they're silly, but we'll see. If I'm out there looking around and I see you out there, we'll jump in. But I mean, by all means, I'm happy to try to do something like this.
Yeah.
More often, but it's been fun. It's been a good conversation. I appreciate it, the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. See you later.
All right, man. See ya.
Bye. All right, so let me close with this. There are no kings in America, not politicians, not bureaucrats, and not mobs. The rule of law is not optional. Equal justice is not negotiable. If we want this republic to survive, we must be willing to apply the law evenly, even when it's uncomfortable, and even when it's politically inconvenient. That is the choice in front of us, and history will remember which path we took. Well, we are out of time for tonight. Thank you for tuning in to No Kings on the Hill with Dr. Law and Joe St. Clair, tonight our special guest, Nom de Plume. Please don't forget to check out our website, nokingsonthehillwithdrlaw.com, and follow my social media pages to get access to daily posts, weekly TikTok lives, and subscriber-only lives on TikTok, and sign up on the website for access to our weekly blog. Also, please don't forget to subscribe or follow, depending on how you're watching our show. And let us know if there are any topics you would like us to cover or changes you would like to see. Your input, engagement, or what make our show better, and let us know we are doing a good job. So once again, thank you to the Patriots Prayer Network. Don't forget to check out all the other conservative podcasts on the channel, and have a blessed week. Hope to see you tomorrow on my TikTok Live.